Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a look at a graphics card from a company I can't really pronounce. MLLSE? I'm not too sure. Anyway, as you can probably guess, things haven't gone overly well. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so today's video we're taking a look at a graphics card. An oldie but a goodie in some respects. This is the Radeon RX580. This is the special Chinese edition, which was the 2048 SP, or SP2048, whichever you want to look at it. This is essentially a slightly cut down version of the original RX580 8GB graphics card. So this was specially designed and released in the Chinese market, quite often used for mining rigs, that sort of thing. And yeah, is essentially cut down. So rather than having the normal number of shaders or texture units, whatever you want to call them, it's got them reduced down to 2048 units rather than the usual however many it is. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's about 2400, 2600, something along those lines. Anyway, long story short, these are very cheap at the moment. They're being sold as brand new cards over on AliExpress, and they were seemingly to be a good bargain. So I've picked this one up for £60 or £60.72 plus taxes. So because it's from AliExpress, it's coming in from overseas, so you have to pay taxes, etc. So total cost for this into the UK, including postage, somewhere in the region of about £72, £73, something along those lines. Now there's many things they've done very well on this particular card and the way this packaged, but obviously something's gone drastically wrong, and their customer service, I will say hand on heart, has been absolutely awful. So if you're considering buying one of these cards, this is a kind of a public service announcement, so buyer beware, definitely. This, as we speak at the moment, this is now Friday the 9th of December 2022, and this arrived actually on Sunday, beginning of this week, and it's taken me until now to kind of get some kind of sense out of AliExpress. Fortunately, they've jumped in and they're kind of trying to rescue the situation and deal with MLLSE Official Store, which is the company which I purchased it from. Anyway, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's look at how the card actually arrived. So obviously this is the card. It's normally supposed to have this fan firmly attached where this section is. Now you can probably see there is some very crude tape over there, just electrical tape just to isolate the cables. There's a few pins and basically the base of the motor there. Normally you'd have a plastic bracket which goes from one side to the other, and then the fan is somewhere in the middle, obviously making up two fans. So it should be absolutely fine, but they have made a fantastic effort in actually sending this out. But there is one spectacular flaw, which they've actually done too much packaging, which I think is what the problem is, and it's basically crushed the fan in transit. So when you actually get it delivered, it comes in a outer padded bag. Inside that bag, there is also this. So this is basically like a capsule or enclosure for putting it all in. So this is really, really good and very strong. Generally, this is the sort of thing you see for mechanical hard drives. They get shipped out in these generally because they're very good at absorbing vibrations and damage, bumps, bangs, all that kind of stuff. Inside of this, you then get the actual cardboard box itself. And inside the cardboard box, there is also more packaging. Now the packaging is relatively generic, as you can possibly make out. So you've got this bit of foam on the top. Again, it's closed cell foam, so it's actually quite good for this kind of thing. It did come in an anti-static bag, and there is a little kind of warranty document, which is kind of useless. The packaging inside is kind of generic, so they've just made it up out of basically this, and they put the card in somehow, and then pack out the rest of it with more closed cell foam, and then they put another chunk of that actually on top. Now when it's actually all packaged up together, there isn't actually anything protecting the fans on the top. So because this is closed cell foam, it's quite thick. So rather than kind of absorbing bumps, it basically passes it through. So what I think has happened is, because this has been in and it's been put in this other foam, also with this around the outside and that really tight as well, if there's any knocks or bangs in that central area, which is most likely it's going to get, it's going to transfer all the energy from that impact straight to the box, straight through the foam and into the fans. Now, most of you will probably know, if you get a fan, especially ones which are fluid dynamic bearing, or rifle bearings generally aren't too bad in this regard, but all the other ones, if you either put too much force on them or pull on them, it breaks the seal. Now, I believe that is what has happened here. It's basically had an impact. It's been cold recently. Obviously, this gets shipped over, I don't know whether it comes in air or train or whatever it comes over on, but it's been really cold. So all the plastic's going to be that much more fragile. So any extra bangs or bumps is going to basically damage the plastic, which is exactly what I believe has happened here. And it's kind of shattered the plastic on there. I'll take the frame off so you can actually see what's going on underneath. It's a real shame, because this card actually, believe it or not, does perform very well, and it does actually still work. I was a little bit hesitant. It's only been today that I've actually tried it. I've been waiting on responses from MLLSE. I have reached out to them via AliExpress's kind of dispute center and their customer contact, etc. And because I was getting basically nowhere with them whatsoever, I actually went to MLLSE's website, their main website, and actually sent an email or kind of like a support ticket saying, like, please can you help me? I'm not getting any help on AliExpress. Essentially, all I want is a replacement fan. The fan, from what I can tell, it is basically on a frame. So you could potentially just get a separate fan, buy the fan, plug it in. Everything is absolutely fine. And even if it cost me anything up to about £10 for a fan, chances are I'll probably do it just to save the aggro and just to keep it looking fresh. But I did try it today, and it actually works really well even with just the one fan. Temperatures somewhere in the region of 70 degrees was the most I saw. That was playing Far Cry New Dawn, and that was with the single fan. So 70 degrees at the moment in the room. It is somewhere in the region of about 23, 24 degrees. So it's actually not too bad, what I would expect for this sort of card. Normal idle temperatures somewhere around about the 30 degrees mark, which I think is actually excellent. It's very good indeed. It hasn't got a zero fan technology, and in fact at the moment when it's in the system it doesn't actually show any RPMs. Maybe that's because that fan was the RPM sensor and that was just like a slave that runs off of that one. I'm not entirely sure how that all works. So what I wanted to do was to see what can I do to actually remedy this. I don't want to faff around. I essentially don't want to send it back to China, because that's going to be all kinds of a nightmare, and if it goes missing, basically I might as well write the money off. So rather than write off the card altogether, I want to try and use it. Now I'm still waiting, like I said, for AliExpress to jump in and try and rectify this in some way. They have said about trying to get me a refund. They said, we'll try and get you your money back. I'll be honest with you, I don't really want my money back. I would like a portion of my money back so I can purchase a fan. Ideally, like I said, all I really want is for them to just contact me and say, look, we'll send you a new fan frame assembly with the wire in, just plug it in, and it'll be absolutely fine. That would be perfect to me. And it has got a 2-year warranty, so effectively they should do that. Even though it was damaged in transit, funnily enough, they did say, just pull the fan out and it should be fine. So clearly they know that this does happen. And quite often, to be honest, if you get a fan, if it's been crushed a little bit, if you do pull up a little bit, generally you kind of feel it and it just kind of clicks back into position. Then you can spin it and it spins fine. Like this one, I did have some footage, which I think I might still have, of me trying to do anything with this, making it spin, but it's essentially, you can't, because it's kind of useless. So without having to kind of solder things together and have a degree in electronics, which I don't have, this is not going to work. So that's what led me on to thinking, how am I going to rectify this? Now obviously there's various ways of doing it. I could just remove this entire shroud, strap on a Noctua fan or an Arctic fan or something along those lines, 120mm fan, and just blast it, connect it up to the motherboard and try and get some sort of reading out of it. But for me, I do like the fact that there's PWM coming through the actual card itself to control the fan speeds. There is a PWM connector down here, and you can get an adapter which will convert that PWM signal from the kind of graphics card 4-pin into a traditional fan PWM, like a 3-pin or a 4-pin PWM signal. So that ideally, that does appeal to me, but then I've still got to find a way of actually attaching a fan to this. So this does appear to be using 92mm fans. So I did actually I've actually got 2 of these for this particular purpose, and believe it or not, this was going to happen previously. So these are the Arctic F9 TC Pros. Now these are actually very interesting little fans. So as you can see, It's the older Arctic design, which is on the rubber mountings. Sadly, there isn't actually a way to obviously put like a cable tie or something through there. I'd love to be able to just put a cable tie through the fin stack and make it fit on there. And I think that would actually look pretty cool. So I'm still kind of umming and ahhing whether I'm going to do that. I could, if I wanted to, I suppose, just use a little bit of glue the tabs onto there. It wouldn't be the most elegant solution, a little bit on the ghetto side, but it definitely could work. So this is something which I am seriously considering doing, maybe leaving the single fan on. It does run okay with the single fan, like I said. Temperatures aren't brilliant, but it's passable. It doesn't throttle, doesn't reduce clock speeds, it just basically runs as it should do. But I would like it to be at least a twin fan. I do worry that this side may be getting a little bit hotter than that side. Depending where the temperature sensors are, it could be causing issues. So yeah, I might be using this. This has got a PWM connection, or sorry, a 3-pin DC connection. So I could plug this into a motherboard, just leave this on full. What it's got is a clever thing. There is actually a temperature sensor on the end here. And it is designed so that if it's in a case, if your case temperature gets to a certain point, somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees Celsius, then the fan will kick in. Normal default is something like about 600 RPM. As it gets warmer, it'll crank up to somewhere in the region of about 1600. So I could, if I wanted to, maybe attach that to the actual heatsink on the cooler, and then I would have at least some element of control over it. Not perfect, but certainly something I am considering doing. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll show you what it was like, actually. I did kind of crudely put this up against the graphics card earlier when I was doing some testing, so you can have a quick look at that. And also, actually, while we're doing that, let's take a look at some examples of gameplay so you can see actually what the performance is like on an RX580 SP2048. So we'll start off first of all with a little bit of Rocket League. Rocket League obviously runs on pretty much anything, even integrated graphics runs quite nicely. But actually runs really well here, and we're getting in the region of about 170 to 200 frames per second very easily. This is at 1080p with pretty much most of the settings turned to the max. Motion blur turned off, and I think dynamic lighting was turned off as well, because I'm not overly keen on that. But extremely playable, and as you can see from the graph on the side, it all remains very stable. The temperatures are starting to creep up a little bit into the 60s. This game isn't overly taxing, so yeah, it runs absolutely fine and was an enjoyable experience. And it just goes to show that this card can be used as is without having to do any work to it at all. But again, it's not ideal, and it looks a little bit on the ghetto side. Also, a game I like to play, which also does stress the card a little bit, is Wreckfest. So I had a little go on Wreckfest. And again, same sort of deal. We're looking at the mid-60s in terms of temperature. All the other graphs, absolutely fine. No dips, no spikes, no throttling. It just runs pretty much as it should do. But I'm still concerned that I could get this thing to be a little bit cooler, which would obviously give the card a little bit more longevity. And also the fact that it is a brand new card, which I've purchased. It has a warranty. I shouldn't be having to go through this kind of personal anguish, which I currently am. So anyway, that is Wreckfest. Runs very well, looks very good. Again, 1080p, mostly high settings, I believe it was. And again, you've got the frame counter in that top right hand side, so you can see what the frames per second are like. It's extremely playable, plays very fluid. Yeah, very enjoyable indeed. And to push things a little bit harder, another AAA title. This is Far Cry New Dawn. Again, runs very well. We're looking in the sort of 70 frames per second. This is 1080p, mostly high settings. Again, I've turned the frame rate cap off, so potentially we can get up to 240 frames per second, although it isn't quite going to get that. This does tax the car a little bit. And I do recall back in the day switching out my old RX480 or 580 for a GTX 1070 just so I could play this and get that 100 frames per second pretty much constantly, which was yeah, a little bit of an upgrade. But this card still does very well. It looks very good. There's no obvious issues with the gameplay, the graphics. It all looks very good, very smooth, very stable. But we are starting to push those temps up a little bit. We did blip up to 70 degrees Celsius, but mostly we're in the high 60s, which is absolutely fine, really. But this is on an open test bench, so things could be a little bit better. So there you go, there is where we're at with it at the moment. I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update. Some of you have been asking, because we did mention in the Discord, this was actually posted as one of those deals. And there have been other YouTube channels which have been kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily promoting these, but highlighting the fact that they're available. And they are what is seemingly a very good price. And to be honest with you, if the card was completely intact and was working and there was no problems with the fans at all, I'll be honest with you, I would be an extremely happy person. It's a a great card. It runs particularly quietly, even though it has got just one fan, so there's no issues there. It's just a real shame that the quality control, they didn't put some extra little bit of card on the top or something just to protect those fans. Maybe even shipping it face down might have helped, I don't know. It just needed something to protect those fans. But ideally, if you've had similar issues with any of these cards from AliExpress, especially from this particular company, which is MLLSE, if you've had one of these in one of the generic boxes, please do let me know, reach out. There's some other kind of weird quirks as well when they advertise these actually on AliExpress. Quite often you'll see it with a slightly different fan shroud, or potentially you'll see it with a different heatsink. This one also has only a 6-pin power connector, whereas some of them are shown with an 8-pin, and quite a lot of the ones now are shown without a backplate. And this one actually has a very substantial backplate. It's just a shame it didn't have a substantial front plate as well to protect it in shipping, and things would be awesome. Something else I noticed as well, quite a few of them weirdly have a DVI connection on here as well, whereas mine has 3 display ports and 1 HDMI. So yeah, there are some various different flavors of this going around. So it'd be interesting to see what you guys out there in viewerland have actually got. What have you received? Has yours been working perfectly? Have you experienced any issues? Have you experienced any damages? I'm very keen to find out. And hopefully AliExpress will jump in and save the day and rectify the fault. I will be updating this video, possibly either in the live streams or whatever. I will try and pin any messages, so if I get any feedback or we get any good results, or even if there's something negative as well, I will highlight it one way or the other, because essentially people need to know that these things aren't always as good as they look on face value, especially if it turns out broken. That is when these cheaper things from overseas can start to become a real headache. Now, I don't want to have to get PayPal involved and try and do some kind of reversal on the payment, because literally I just need some fans for it. And also, if you're watching this and you know what these fans are and you can find them on AliExpress or Amazon, something like that, please do let me know, because I'll quite happily go and buy some and replace it and get this thing back into its original working condition. That is all I want to do, but yeah, it's proving to be very very tedious at the moment. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up there. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully it's been slightly either entertaining or informative if you're potentially looking at buying one of these. Let me know in the comments section. So, I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.